agreeable to him that when I finish my few words that we go directly to the vote. Are you all still? You need to object, Chuck.
Yeah, the vote. Was in the resolution is at 6:10.
You don't want to move it up? You don't want to move it up?
No, we need it at 6:10.
Okay, great.
Okay?
I will
so
withdraw.
If the senator wants to speak beyond 5 minutes, that's okay with us.
I will withdraw my unanimous consent with the rest. This is a very straightforward amendment. The people who vote against this rule change, what they're going to be telling you is they don't want you to know what's going on in the Senate. And they don't want us to know what's going on in the Senate, because all this rule does is make it a force of habit of the Senate that before we look at legislation, we ought to determine whether it duplicates things that are already out there in the government. And we ought to determine if it's overlapping to other programs. Had this amendment been in effect, a third of what we've passed in the past wouldn't pass, because we would then see, which we're ignorant of today, all the other programs that are available and out there that accomplish the same purposes for which we pass another new program. On one of my committees in this year, in the last year, not this year, but in the last year, colleagues have offered amendments, well-intentioned, good motives to accomplish a good purpose, but they lack knowledge. But what they didn't know, and both amendments were ultimately withdrawn when they were explained to them, that in fact we already had programs that did exactly the same thing. And so what we have is we have over $200 billion worth of duplication now within the federal government. And this is a simple, straightforward amendment that says before we consider things on the floor, it's less than 700 bills over 2 years, that the CRS would in fact tell us, here's what you're doing, here's what the government's already doing in these areas, so that we don't end up with duplication, so that we don't end up with overlapping, and that we actually get results from what we're doing. And I would remind my colleagues that we have, just in the last GAO report, we have multitudes of duplicate programs, and I will repeat them so people will know. And I also would state, this is a bipartisan amendment in the spirit of what the senator from New York and the senator from Tennessee have done. This amendment has Senator Udall, Senator McCaskill, Senator Burr and Senator McCain, as well as Senator Collins, and Senator Paul and Senator Scott Brown. So this isn't a partisan move. This is a move about information and knowledge so that we make informed decisions. But just for the record, what the GAO told us less than 5 months ago, that we have 101 programs across 4 different agencies for surface transportation. That's 101 sets of bureaucracies. Nobody's ever gone and say which one's working, which one's not, which one does exactly the same thing versus what somebody else does. We have 82 teacher programs for teacher quality across 10 different agencies, 9 of which are not in the Department of Education. We have 88 economic development agencies, spending $6.5 billion a year across 4 different agencies. We have job training. We have 47 job training programs across 9 different agencies, and we're spending $18 billion a year, and the GAO said every one of them overlaps with the exception of 3. And yet we haven't had the first move in the Senate this year, in spite of all our problems economically, to streamline, eliminate duplication, eliminate overlap, and put metrics on what we're doing. I would also just list for the record the rest of these. Again, I would state, if you're against this amendment, you're against eliminating the very cause of our problems in this country, which is duplication, redundancy, overlap, and you're against doing the proper oversight so that we make informed decisions. And with that, I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.